because everybody says the same thing about their dreams. My dreams are so weird.
Yeah.
You know, they're crazy. They don't make any sense. Well,
Right.
Everybody says that. And
Okay.
on some level, yes, on the above the water level, yeah, they're weird. They don't follow like an organized pattern the way like if I were writing a story or something like that. Because symbol and metaphor and all that stuff are a big deal in the dream world.
When life throws a challenge at you, one thing is certain. To find a resolution for every issue, every problem, for everybody, there's more than one way. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the More Than One Way podcast. I'm Whitney Ross. With me, as always, is Thom Rasnick.
Hi, Whitney.
Hey, Thom. How you doing?
Good. I'm good today.
Good. We every once in a while we have a topic on the podcast that our listeners ask us to go a little deeper, to revisit and kind of take a deeper dive into that. And today is one of those times. We had a conversation around dreams on our last episode, and our listeners want to learn more about that. So that's what we're going to discuss today.
Oh, that's great. It's my favorite thing in the world.
It's we also posed a few questions just to kind of get a feel for where our audience is. And one of the questions we asked was how many people remember their dreams? You want to take a guess on kind of where people fell as far as remembering their dreams?
You mean like a percentage?
Sure.
30%.
33%.
Oh, wow.
Really close. Yeah. So 33% said they remember their dreams. About 22% said they didn't. And about 40% said sometimes. So sometimes they remember, sometimes they don't.
So 73% is kind of in the
Yeah.
either sometimes or do remember.
Right.
Which is a lot. That's more than I would thought.
Yeah, more than I would have guessed as well. And then we also asked about recurring dreams, and 85% of the people said that they have a recurring dream.
Oh, wow.
So,
wow. Well, from my perspective of working with dreams, and I've been working with my dreams for 22 years now. 22. By and large, every week.
Mm-hmm.
I have
every week.
Every week, yeah.
Okay.
We'll take breaks here and there,
right.
but when the person is available and I'm available, we do it every week.
Okay.
And it's been the central part of my spiritual life. It's been the central spiritual tool in my life for that long. It really, really has helped me more than anything else learn more about myself, learn more about my life, more about kind of who I am and how I go about living in the world and how I can grow. It's been the primary tool for that, for helping me with that. And just taking the reoccurring thing from my experience would be whatever it is that's reoccurring really wants the attention of the person having the reoccurring dream.
Gotcha.
If you have it over and over and over again, then something really is trying to get you to pay attention to it. And that gives you a little insight into how I go about looking at dreams.
Mm-hmm.
That they're something that they're an energy, they're a force, they're a communication, they're a message from the deeper parts of ourselves trying to get in touch with us.
What do you mean by the deeper parts of ourselves?
Okay, so a way to look at human beings. Some people are going to look at human beings as what you see is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Those people are probably in the whatever percentage that don't remember their dreams. Okay.
Okay.
Because there's nothing more than what I would call your ego. And then there's other people. There's more to us than meets the eye.
Mm-hmm.
And people who are in that place are kind of would represent the camp that I'm in. So an image to look at to try to help with that would be an iceberg. So if we were to look at an iceberg, we see the only thing that we see usually when we're on top of the water is the part that's out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
But what we all know about icebergs is there's a greater part underneath the water. And that's the way the human psyche, and by psyche I mean the conscious and unconscious parts of our internal world. Okay, so the human psyche has what's out of the water, mm-hmm. meaning our conscious awareness of ourselves, of maybe to some degree other people and life. But the greater part is underneath the water. And that's the part that the dreams show us, the stuff that's underneath the water, and it's trying to bring it out of that underneath part and bring it into the light, bring it into our awareness so that we can see it, so that we have a sense of the fullness, the wholeness of who and what we are.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So when you're talking about it bringing that to light, what is bringing that to light, or who, or what's the force kind of behind that?
Okay, so dreams have been around for a long, long time, and all religions / spiritual traditions have used them. And the way they would put it back in the day is that the gods and or God is trying to get in touch with you. Okay. The way we put it today would be it's the God within. Okay, so that's another part of the spiritual world that has come to be, and that is that there's a piece of the divine, there's a piece of God that's within each person. There's a spark, and different traditions try to get at it in different ways. The Buddhists might call it something like the Buddha nature. Christians might call it the Christ nature. So it's that little spark of something that's beyond that piece that's out of the water.
Okay.
And from where I'm coming from, that's where the dream's coming from. It's coming from that realm, that world, to try to help us out.
Yeah.
Now, it helps us out in ways that aren't, always pleasant to our part out of the water, to our conscious part. But it's all, in my experience, it's always helpful. And I can give you an example if you want.
Sure.
This first one's not too bad. It's not like this is more of kind of a little nudge, a little help, a little encouragement from the person, for the person who's dreaming it. So the big thing about dreams is what's going on with the person who's dreaming it. What kind of person do we have here? What kind of out of the water person, that part out of the water, person is dreaming it. So what's their conscious position, how they see themselves, how do they see life, okay? So this person had what we might call very low self-esteem. So this person had a real hard time seeing himself as having gifts, as being worthwhile, and was just about to undertake a new project. And he was actually going to work on a sailboat.
Okay.
Right? But he was very unsure of himself. He wasn't sure he could do it, which was pretty typical of the way he went about. So he had a dream one night, and in the dream, and he took it to the person he worked with his dreams with. In the dream, a carpenter showed up in his workshop, this young guy's workshop, and he said to him, "You can do it. It's all going to work out. Trust yourself." Okay? So when he took it to the person who he worked with his dreams, that person said, "There it is. You have your own internal support." Okay, so that's another thing about dreams, is if you have a character like that carpenter, and the way that he saw the carpenter, here's a big thing. The way that he saw the carpenter was in a very positive way. He was hardworking, industrious, wise, and knew what he was talking about. Okay. So from the perspective that I'm learned to see dreams, that carpenter's worth listening to. So he didn't have to go outside of himself and get approval by somebody outside. He already had the internal approval of something bigger than the stuff outside of the water, bigger than his own conscious position of himself. And it was saying, "You can do it." Those are great dreams to have, because they're nice. Like really supportive. All right. But if you flipped it and said that this guy wasn't a guy with low self-esteem, but a guy who was extremely arrogant, this is a guy who's good in one thing, so he thinks he's good in everything. Okay? So that's his conscious position of himself. I'm better than anybody. I can do anything. Okay? If that guy had a dream like that, and then he took it to his dream person, and the dream person asked, "Well, what do you think of the carpenter?" And he said, well, the carpenter's shady. He's not somebody that I would trust. Then, you see, what the dream would be saying is, don't trust it. Don't trust that you can do it. Maybe you need to find somebody who actually has more experience in the realm that you're about ready to undertake. And that would be a very helpful thing for somebody who thinks they can do everything when maybe they can't.
Gotcha.
So a big part of the dream and how you understand the dream, from my perspective, is where your conscious position is.
So it's unique to the dreamer.
I think it is. For it can have. You can learn things. Other people can learn things through the dreamer, but a lot of times the dream is set up, for that dreamer, for that dreamer's conscious position,
to see something maybe they're not able to see.
To see something that they're not able to see. One big word that people use is to compensate. So my conscious position is low self-esteem. I can't do much. Well, the dream might come then to try to help with that.
Okay.
All right. There's another one that I heard. The names have been changed to protect the innocent here, just so you know, because we don't want to bust anybody. Because part of doing dream work really is you're sharing a deep part of yourself, and you're sharing vulnerable. A part of yourself that you don't know,
right?
That you're not aware of. Okay. You always have a part to play, and this dream will flesh that out. That the dreamer always has a part to play in the interpretation of the dream, in the integration of the dream. But first and foremost is you don't know. You're not aware, or you wouldn't dream it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this person, they're going to call her Joan. And Joan has a colleague, and her name was Karen. Okay. And Joan and Karen in the dream, Joan has the dream, and in the dream, Joan and Karen went out to lunch.
Okay. And
they just had a chat. And in the dream, Joan just gets really frustrated, and then she wakes up. Okay.
Okay.
No reason why. I can't really tell why, until she took it to her dream person, and they talked about it. And the dream person asked, well, what do you associate with Karen? Okay, meaning when Karen comes up, what does it make you think of? What are the attributes? What does it make you think of about her? Get what I mean? I'm blanking on words. So she said, well, Karen, she's bossy and she's judgmental, and she always turns the conversation to make it all about her, no matter what you're talking about. Okay. So that was her perception of Karen.
Okay.
Okay. So what the dream person tried to help Joan see is, well, Karen's a part of you. Okay. That's just another thing about dream. All the characters in the dream somehow or another are a part of that under the water stuff.
Okay.
All right.
So they're connected to you.
They're connected to you, but you don't want them to be. Right? Yeah. So the person, Joan, who was having the dream, couldn't see that she had the same characteristics
that Karen had.
That she could see it in Karen, but she could only see herself as kind of not bossy, very not judgmental, and certainly didn't turn the conversation to make it about her. She was such a great listener.
Yeah.
Okay. So the dream's not coming in to slam her. The dream's coming in to say, okay, you see that in her, but you have that too. It might not be coming out in the same way that it's coming out in her, but you have it too. And it comes to help. And what it did for Joan was it helped her to have more compassion.
Okay.
When Karen got like that.
Yeah.
Because she could say, oh, okay, I'm like that sometimes too. Right? So it's not that the person doesn't have the so-called hook. It's not that Karen wasn't bossy or judgmental or all that stuff. It's that the only reason she could see it is because it was in her too.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the big thing about dreams is all the characters in your dreams, for the most part, are showing you something about yourself that you can't see.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I just think about all the random people, characters that show up in dreams.
Yeah,
in my dreams, I'm just like, I haven't thought about that person in 20 years, and then they're in my dream.
Right. So if that were the case, then it would be from my perspective, it would be okay. Well, so you write your dream down. Mm-hmm. You write the character of the dream down, and then you have somebody you can talk with. Or if you don't feel like you can do that, you sit with yourself and write out all the characteristics of that person that comes to your mind. Mm-hmm. Because you could have just the opposite too. You could have people who come into your dream who are kind and compassionate and wise, mm-hmm. and you might not be able to see that in you.
In yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
You might only be able to see the opposite of that. So it comes on both sides.
So, but they're kind of painting a bigger picture of yourself.
Bigger picture of yourself, so that more of yourself comes out of the water, as it were, using the iceberg image. Mm-hmm. Right? So more of yourself comes out, and you can start to say, hey, maybe I'm not all that bad. Hey, maybe I'm not all that good. Same thing?
Mm-hmm. So more than one way to look at something rather than just kind of the perspective you have day to day.
Right.
Dreams are helping you see things in more than one way.
Yes, they're helping you to see yourself in more than one way. You're helping you to see life in more than one way, and they're helping you to then hopefully go about living life in more than one way. Mm-hmm. They're a very extremely powerful tool if you buy into it, and like I said, they come in service of helping you. And the thing that I said before about the person's part who's dreaming mm-hmm. is, so like with the Joan and Karen dream, Joan didn't want to see that in herself.
Sure.
Right? Okay. So her first responses were, no, I'm not like that. That's not me. Mm-hmm. Okay. But then you just keep sticking with it. And then eventually the person will have to, and this has to happen. There has to be like an aha mm-hmm. or a, oh no, or oh my goodness.
Right.
Some kind of emotional tag that gets the person to connect with what they are not aware of. And so in this instance with Joan, she eventually, after a while, was able to go, yeah, that's right. Okay. I do that. Mm-hmm. I can see that.
So it sounds like, that could be a difficult process.
Yeah, it can be a very difficult process. It can be there can be tears involved. There can be laughter mm-hmm. involved. There can be anger, frustration, joy, all the wide range of the human responses to life. Mm-hmm. But yes, it is, and it's it takes work.
And like you said, you've been in that kind of dream work for 20-something years. Mm-hmm. I'm sure your conversations, your thoughts about those dreams, I'm sure that process has changed over that time for you as far as what it looks like to sit down and talk with someone about your dreams versus the way it was maybe in the beginning.
Yeah, I think I am much more willing kind of right off the bat to go, oh wow, okay. So that's mm-hmm. a part of who I am. I can give you an example of a dream of mine, if you want. This is a little longer. Those two are, I'm not going to give you one of those really weird ones because everybody says the same thing about their dreams. My dreams are so weird. Yeah. They're crazy. They don't make any sense. Right. Everybody says that. And on some level, yes, on the above the water level, yeah, they're weird. They don't follow like an organized pattern the way like if I were writing a story or something mm-hmm. like that. Because symbol and metaphor and all that stuff are a big deal in the dream world. Okay, so like I said, the dream's going to use the symbol of maybe somebody I like, maybe somebody I don't like to show me something about myself.
Gotcha.
Okay, mm-hmm. So this dream was a few years ago, and it was during a time when I was just kind of struggling with what was going on in the world. I don't know if you've noticed this, but most news is not positive news. Most news is bad.
Yeah.
And I was caught up in the cycle of, I didn't watch 24-hour news, but other news things, in particular about some of the atrocities that people had experienced, around race, around sexual orientation, and then around the environment, the climate stuff and all that. And that really got a hold of me. I really was struggling with that. And, so part of my answer to the struggle was like justify it. Well, it's not bad. We're getting better, that kind of thing. And, and which is true, but it's still kind of a push it aside, don't pay attention to it way to respond to it. Another way for me to do it was just go, well, it's not that bad. It can't be that bad. So that would be another way. And then and this was the biggest way. I was numbing out. I was numbing out on all of it. And you know what I mean by numbing out, right? Okay. Because there's lots of industries around numbing out, right? So I was numbing and had this dream. So in the dream, I was like a graduate student at this university. And my academic advisor / counselor / favorite professor was this old African-American guy, African-American man. He looked like he'd been around when the stars were made. You know what I mean?
Wow.
He had that kind of wisdom in his eyes, a wisdom and a sadness and a sparkle and a mournful beauty, all in his eyes. And loved being with the guy. And so we had a class one day. I was in a lab with him and we were doing something. And I left, and when I got home, I sat down and was doing kind of like a meditation. And this is in the dream. So I'm doing a meditation in the dream. And then all of a sudden, all these images start rushing in front of my face. All these images. And the images are of all the atrocities that have ever happened in the history of the world. So all the indigenous destruction, all the horror that they've gone through, all the horror that people who are on the margins of society have had to deal with. And then all the environmental degradation. So it's just going through century after century. And it's piercing my heart in such a way that I just start bawling. And I'm crying so hard in the dream that my eyes, I can hardly see. And the pain it's so intense. And I'm just like, oh my God, stop. And then the images keep coming and they just keep coming. And so that would fit with your part of the difficulty. So it was painful to feel it because I could feel it in the dream and I could feel it outside of the dream. And somehow or another, there's like a break and I see on the table there's a bowl, and it's like a wooden bowl. It's an ornamental bowl. And in it are these 4 seeds. And they're red and green with kind of white. And they've got filament and stuff like coming out. And they're big, almost as big as like a pomegranate. They kind of remind me of a pomegranate, but they were a seed.
Okay.
And I was like, what the heck? And so something in me said, take it to the professor. So I got in the car and I drove with these things, and somehow or another he knew I was coming, those things in dreams.
Right.
And he met me outside, and I handed him the bowl, and he just looked at me, twinkle in his eyes, sadness in his eyes, and he took it and he went into the lab and he said, wait right here. So he went into the lab, and in a little bit he came back out, and he had a little vial, and the vial was probably no bigger than my thumb, really. It was a small, and it had a purple liquid in it. And he said, drink it. And so I trusted him, and I drank it. And then all of a sudden, my heart stopped hurting, and I kind of felt a calm come over me. And then I looked at him, and I looked in his eyes just like the ocean, and he just laughed. And then I just started laughing. And that was the dream.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, right? Now, what the hell is that, right? Yeah. So, okay, so let's take him first, right?
Okay.
So, as I said, all the characters are a part. So, one big character within the dream world is a representative of that divine spark, is somebody who represents the wise old person, who is the older than my conscious position in this situation, something that connects me to the eons, right? That's part of what I think people mean when they say Buddha nature, Christ nature, the spark of the divine and all that. Okay, so he was that.
Okay.
Right? He was that in me. And it doesn't have to be that. In somebody else it might be a mountain, because I've had dreams where it's been that. Or it might be like in some traditions, the God image is the apex predator of your dream. So if you had a dream and you were in a place in, say, a jungle, and the jaguar is the apex predator of that area, well, that's the God image. Okay, so it's trying to get at the power and the strength and all that goes with that symbol. And so with this guy, it's not only power and strength, it's wisdom and compassion and experience of life. Right? So that's all who he represented to me. Right? So there's him. Then there's the images of all the atrocities, right? Okay. I don't want this to be politicized, because I'm not trying to politicize anything. I mean, the bottom line is that's just fact. That's happened in the world and happens in the world. Okay? And it also, if we're going to flip it a little bit to myself, it also kind of shows, especially the indigenous part, sometimes how I treat my natural nature, if you want to put it that way, my instinctual natural nature. That's what the indigenous world represents. They're very connected to nature, very connected to the natural way of just being. Okay? And civilization didn't want too much to do with that, is my take on it. And so we really did a good job of getting rid of them, or at least coming close. And the fact for me is I have to face that and see that as real. It's not a matter of pessimism. It's not a matter of optimism. It's a matter of being real. That's what I took from the dream. Be honest and real about what life brings. And how sometimes I can treat myself that way. Meaning, part of my natural way of being is deeply, deeply sensitive. I don't want to be deeply, deeply sensitive. I don't like it. It's not fun. All right? Because what happens if I don't rationalize, justify, or numb out, in particular numb out, I feel it all.
Feel it all, yep.
Okay? So part of the dream is saying, feel it all. Feel it all. Because that's part of the deal. Okay? Are we good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So what about the seeds in your dream? What was that about?
Okay, so seeds are, kind of nature's, here's life, new life, life in potential, life about to happen, life, right? So, if you plant a seed, all the potential of what that seed is, so say it's an oak tree or no, let's don't go, say it's like a tomato. So you plant a tomato seed, and eventually, if you take care of it and do enough, the tomatoes come. That comes out of the seed. So the seeds, for me, 4 is like a big number within the dream world. It's a number of wholeness.
Getting back to the symbols. And
getting back to the symbols and all that kind of stuff, right? So let's don't go too far down the number road, because we can get into high weeds. So just trust me on that.
Okay.
Right? So there's a wholeness. So here's this potential for all this new life that comes directly from nature. and dreams are a product of nature, of that. So that's what the seeds are. It holds the potential for new life.
So kind of in the midst, you've seen all of these atrocities and images,
Mm-hmm.
and then right in the midst of that, you're seeing the life as well.
Possibility.
With the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the possibility is a way not necessarily to fix all that, but a way for me to live within it. Live within the tension that life can be horrible. And horrible things can happen. And it doesn't mean no good to pretend like that's not true. It does me no good to numb out to that, which is what a strong part of me wants to do. Okay, so this gives me a third option in a sense.
Okay,
it's not fall into despair, which is, like I said, is kind of where I was almost in my conscious life. I was almost in that place. Not fall into all the tricks and trades to pretend like it's not real. So there's a third way, and this.
So in that path of the dream, you took those seeds back to your professor or your guide.
Because I figured, that something greater than my conscious ego. By conscious ego, I mean that part of the iceberg that you see out of the water. Something greater than that, that's deep within me, could help me.
Yeah.
And all that is represented in that man. Okay, so I take it to him, and he comes back with his, like I said, it's teeny, don't even need that much, right?
And tells you to drink it.
And says drink it, yeah.
Yeah.
So drinking, any of that kind of stuff in dreams. So dreams are never, like I said, dreams are never what you see is what you get. It's always a symbol for something more. And so in that small little thing is the power of a whole new way of being, a whole new attitude, a whole new life, a whole new way to look at myself and to look at life. And all that's wrapped up in the seeds and the... Now I worked on this with somebody, somebody who's been working with his dreams for over 50 years. Okay. So I highly recommend it. Get it if you don't want to do it. Highly recommend it. Okay. So then, when I drank it, it was almost like, it's almost like living within the tension, as I said, of the fullness of being alive. And living within the tension of the fullness of being alive is to accept it all. And to accept all of myself. I'm a part of all of that. And so the smile was that kind of, sure, within all this, there's still this deep, deep connection. And within myself and with other people. And within all the atrocities, there's still love. There's still kindness. And people who have experienced it know that better than anybody. And that's what, once again, another thing that guy represented.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like people who are living on the reservation and know the horror of being totally and completely discriminated, if not trying to be destroyed. But yet they still know how to have ceremonies and laugh and enjoy new birth and engage life. Is that clear?
Yeah, it's interesting because you spoke initially about the dream about the carpenter, and then you went into the dream about Joan and Karen, which those kind of shared kind of helpful tips, for the dreamer, where your dream was obviously something much deeper than that.
That's right.
I mean, so dreams obviously, there's obviously a range of what a dream can provide.
Yeah, that's right. So there's it's like taking your car into a shop or something like that. If I want to use that example. So there's the tune-up.
Right.
Or there's the step before the tune-up. There's just putting gas in, right?
Right.
And so some dreams might be like, just put a little gas in your tank, help you out here. And then there's the car's not running as well. Look, get a tune-up, and then there's the big ones. And in my experience, you might only have 3 or 4 of those every 5-10 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Some people might only have them 3 or 4 in their whole life. Yeah, there's all different kinds of levels. I guess you could say.
Is there a difference between like a dream and a nightmare?
I don't think there is.
They're both the same.
I think a nightmare is just a particular kind of dream that is so intense, like I said before about repetitive dreams.
Mm-hmm.
A nightmare is going to fall into the probably powerful, so intense that it really wants you to pay attention. And in order to find out exactly what the nightmare is coming in service of, you'd have to work it. You'd have to go into it.
Hmm. And it's interesting because we talk about, some dreams seeming smaller, others you feel them well after the point of waking up.
Yeah.
I mean, you carry that feeling with you.
Yeah. The dream I shared, I did. There's no doubt about it. It was kind of a relief, the dream I shared with you, because like I said, my conscious position was almost on the verge of despair.
Yeah.
Over what kind of a world am I participating in and leaving for my children and my granddaughter.
So how do you remember your dreams? What's kind of your process for that?
So when I first started doing it, usually I would wake up 2 or 3 in the morning, something like that, and I was like, "Holy crap, what was that?"
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd go to our closet. We have a walk-in closet, not like a teeny little thing.
Yeah.
Would go in there and take a pad and a pencil, and this was, I think, pre-cell phone. Yeah. So I would try to be quiet as I could, and then I'd write it down. And I did that for 10, 15 years on some form. Lately, what I do is I wake up and I remember, and then I might, if I feel like I'm not gonna, then I'll get up and I'll do it on my phone, just write it into my phone. And if I feel like I got it, which is probably a little arrogant, I probably should just always get up and write it down. But I feel like I've got a lot of practice. So I'll just wait until the morning, and then I'll get up and write it down.
Write it down.
But I always write it down.
Gotcha.
I always put it down because they're ethereal. They can.
It's hard to capture.
Yeah. They can just float away like the cloud.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, just like any relationship, the stronger it gets, the more engaged each side becomes, I would say. The side under the water, the side above the water.
So if somebody's just kind of starting to explore connecting with their dreams and they aren't necessarily in a place where they have someone to share them with, kind of how would you guide them to start?
There's some books that you could use that would help a little bit. Probably the most, in my experience, the most usable and the most accessible one is a book by a guy named Robert Johnson called Inner Work. And in Inner Work, he kind of walks you through how to especially take a character in a dream like the Karen person in Joan's dream, and really it shows you ways to really get at how to I'm losing the word, how to write down your associations with that person.
Okay.
What that person makes you think about, what you think of that person. And it really, really helps, because the more you can get that out, the more it'll start to click. And he really provides a way for you to do it for almost every aspect of your dream. So like if you might just have a dream where you're standing in a blue room. Mm-hmm. Well, what's blue? Right, and then you write all the things that blue makes you think of.
Okay.
And that might be something that would give you a picture of how the dream sees where you are.
Gotcha.
Right, so there's books like that. There's another book out. It might help a little bit. It's older. It was written in 1968. It kind of gets at the idea that these are gods within the messages and all that, and it's called Dreams, God's Forgotten Language. And it's a book by a guy who was actually an Episcopal priest and a Jungian analyst, Carl Jung. Mm-hmm. And his name is John Sanford. And that's a very accessible book. And if you really want to get into it, probably the most technical and the most thorough is a book called Dreams, A Portal to the Source. Don't I sound like like I know so much about this stuff? You know, I mean, the thing is, it's all of it's mystery. But it's like I said, for me personally, it's been an extremely powerful tool, and it's helped me and continues to help me in my life.
Well, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your own dream.
Yeah. Thank you. You're welcome.
As we kind of look at this and think about what might be there is just another way, like you said, to connect to that small voice inside that helps us see a bigger picture of who we are.
Yeah.
We'll be sure and link to the titles of the books that Thom shared so that you can have access to those if you're looking to kind of take that first step into investigating how your dreams might be impacting where you are. So we thank you guys for being with us, and hope you'll join us again.
And one last thing, if you want to take a second step, just contact us. Contact us here. I can really help you out with this. So, just saying.
Thanks, Thom.
Uh-huh. Thank you for listening to this episode of the More Than One Way podcast, brought to you by the Center for Spiritual Practice in Knoxville, Tennessee. We really appreciate your time and would love to hear your feedback. You can reach us by emailing hello@morethanonewaypod.com, or you can connect with us on social media using the handle @morethanonewaypod. If you found this episode helpful, we hope that you'll share it with your friends, with your family, with people you work with all the people who you know. Thank you, and take care.